Hello everyone! We finally have the concrete details for the version 6.3 update, the massive Luna 4 patch. We have the confirmed date for the special program. We have the official lore drop for Columbina that actually explains her backstory. And most importantly, we have the version 2 beta changes that just dropped this morning. The developers quietly buffed her most expensive constellation, and they rewrote the rules on how her damage stacking works. If you were planning to skip this banner, you need to see these numbers first. Looking for the best way to recharge in Genshin Impact? Loot Bar is the smarter choice. It works exactly like the in-game top-up, but it's way more affordable. New users get 10% off with the link in the pinned comment, and users can receive an additional 5% discount coupon. Loot Bar also has special deals on crystal packs, including the 6480 bundle, and even an all-in-one package with everything you need. See this? The regular $100 pack only costs $80 on Loot Bar. The process is simple and secure. You don't need your password or login. Just enter your UID, pick your server, choose your pack, and your crystals are delivered in seconds. Players around the world trust Loot Bar because it's fast, safe, and affordable. So don't waste your money. Click the link in the description or pinned comment and start saving on your top-ups today. Loot Bar, safe, fast, and way more affordable. Now, for a quick reminder about the new giveaways. Both of the 6480 Genesis Crystals giveaways are active right now and will stay open until December 31st. I'll be announcing the winners on January 1st. As always, these are part of the monthly giveaways we do here on the channel, so if you haven't joined yet, make sure you do. All you need to do is be subscribed, watch all the videos, and comment your UID and region. 2 winners will be picked soon, so don't miss your chance. Let's get the schedule out of the way immediately so you can plan your pulls. We finally have the official announcement graphic for the version 6.3 special program. The version is titled Luna, which gives us a pretty huge hint that the story is going to center entirely around the Moon Sisters or the fake sky. The livestream is happening on January 2nd, 2026. The time is set for midnight UTC 5. I know that is late for a lot of you, but considering this is the patch that introduces the Welkin Moon's homecoming, you are going to want to stay up for this. This isn't a filler patch. This is the main event of Nod Krai. Now, let's talk about the star of the show, Columbina. We finally have her full splash art and her title, Hyposelenia. For the longest time, we just knew her as the Damselette, but this new lore text gives us the darkest backstory we have seen in a while. It completely recontextualizes who she is. The text explicitly says, "To Columbina, this planet was never a kind mother." That is a heavy way to start a character introduction. It says the planet gave her a singular, extraordinary identity when it birthed her, but then exhausted all the love it could offer. It talks about her mother rejecting her outstretched arms with cold silence. This confirms a lot of the theories that she isn't exactly human, or at least not a normal one. The text mentions she was trapped in a maze that was a circle, a spiraling tower reaching upward. This sounds exactly like the Spiral Abyss or some inverted version of Celestia. She hummed melodies to connect to this mother, and she walked barefoot through the Frost Moon Enclave and Glupov. Those are new locations we haven't fully explored yet, likely coming in the expanded map for 6.3. The most touching part is the end, where it says she finally found a name of her own with the help of her friends. It looks like her story quest is going to be about her finding humanity after being rejected by the world itself. It is sad, it is beautiful, and it makes me want to pull for her even more. But you aren't just here for the lore. You are here for the power, and that is where things get complicated. The version 2 beta updates have changed the way her kit reads, specifically regarding her constellations. We need to look at the lunar reaction types because this is the core of her gameplay. The kit mentions Lunar Charged, Lunar Bloom, and Lunar Crystallize. This is huge. It implies that Columbina isn't just a hydro unit, she is a hydro unit that applies a lunar state to elemental reactions. It's like a modifier on top of the existing system. If you look at the text for her 4th constellation, Cloud-Veiled Ridges in Floral Mists, it explains that when her skill, Kuvaki Interference, is triggered, it restores 4 elemental energy. That is the standard battery effect. But the second part is where the version 2 changes happened. In the previous version, the text was a bit messy regarding how the damage increase worked. The new version 2 text clarifies that if the lunar reaction type that accumulates the most gravity for Columbina is one of those 3 charged, bloom, or crystallize the damage dealt by this specific instance of Kuvaki interference is increased. The scaling is based on her max HP. We are looking at 12.5% of max HP for Lunar Charged and Lunar Crystallize, and 2.5% for Lunar Bloom. Wait, you might be asking, why is Lunar Bloom so much lower? It's only 2.5% compared to 12.5%. That is because Bloom reactions spawn cores, which deal damage separately and much more frequently. If they gave Bloom a 12.5% HP scaling on top of the cores, she would literally break the game. The developers are being careful here. They want her to be viable in electro-charged and geo teams, not just another dendro slave. The version 2 text also cleaned up the triggering condition. It now clearly states, this effect can be triggered at most once every 15s. That is a long cooldown, which means this C4 is a nuke. It's not consistent DPS, it's a massive burst of damage every rotation. The biggest change in the version 2 beta, however, is in the team-wide buffs. In the version 1 beta, her C4 said, Lunar Reaction DMG dealt by the entire party is increased by 3%. In version 2, they changed the wording to, all nearby party members' Lunar Reaction DMG is elevated by 3%. The word elevated suggests a different part of the damage formula. Usually, increased adds to the DMG bonus multiplier, like an elemental goblet, but elevated might imply a separate multiplier, similar to how Nouvelette's passive works or maybe even a base damage increase. But here is the problem. A 3% increase sounds incredibly low, doesn't it? You pay hundreds of dollars or save for months to get a C4 character, and you get a 3% buff? The community was raging about this when the version 1 beta leaked. People were doom posting everywhere, saying she was dead on arrival and that her constellations were not worth the money. It felt like a slap in the face to see such a tiny number on a premium constellation. So did they fix it? Well, yes and no. This brings us to the most important change in the patch notes, Constellation 6. Her C6 is called Through Darkness, Led by Moonlight. This is the whale bait. This is the constellation that is supposed to turn her into a god. The effect is actually wild. For 8 seconds after characters in the lunar domain trigger a lunar reaction, the crit DMG of the corresponding elemental DMG is increased by 80%. Read that again. 80% critical damage. That is not a typo. If you trigger a lunar charged reaction, your electro or hydro crit DMG goes up by 80%. If you trigger lunar bloom, your dendro crit DMG skyrockets. This effect alone makes her the best support in the game for these specific reactions. It effectively gives every character in your party a free crit damage circlet and a half. But here is the specific change regarding the scam I mentioned earlier. In the version 1 beta, the secondary effect of her C6, the passive team buff, was identical to her C4. It said, all nearby party members' lunar reaction DMG is elevated by 3%. It felt cheap. It felt like they just copy-pasted the text. In the version 2 beta, they buffed it. The text now reads, all nearby party members' lunar reaction DMG is elevated by 5%. Okay, I know what you are thinking. You made me listen to this for a 2% buff? Yes, I did, and here is why it matters. In high-level calculations, that elevation mechanic stacks. If you have C6, you get the effects from the previous constellations too. So you have the 3% from C4 and the 5% from C6. If these stack additively, that is an 8% unique multiplier. If they stack multiplicatively with other sources, it is even stronger. But the key here is that the developers are actively tweaking these numbers. They realized 3% was too low for a C6, so they bumped it. It shows they are watching the feedback. But is it worth it? If you are a free-to-play player, looking at a C6 buff is useless. However, even at C0, the existence of lunar reactions suggests her base kit is going to be strong. The C4 and C6 changes just confirm that her ceiling is high. The 3% to 5% change on C6 might seem small on paper, but in the world of speedrunning and maximizing damage per screenshot, that is the difference between clearing the abyss in 20 seconds versus 15 seconds. The change in the C6 text also cleaned up a confusing bit about element involved. The version 1 text said, based on the element involved. The version 2 text says, based on the elements involved. Plural. This is a tiny grammar fix, but it suggests that if you trigger a dual element reaction, you might get buffs for both elements. For example, in Electrocharged, both Hydro and Electro coexist. If the version 2 text implies you get the 80% crit DMG bonus for both Hydro and Electro damage, that is absolutely broken. So, where does this leave us? We have the livestream on January 2nd. We have a lore drop that paints Columbina as a tragic, fallen angel figure rejected by the planet. And we have a kit that revolves around a new lunar mechanic that the devs are actively buffing in the beta. If you are saving Primogems, you need to decide now. Are you going for her weapon? Or are you saving for her constellations? With these buffs, her early constellations like C1 and C2, which we haven't discussed today but usually lead up to these mechanics, are probably going to be essential for comfortable gameplay, but C6 is where she becomes a different unit entirely. Don't let the small numbers fool you. 3% to 5% is a signal. It's a signal that they want her to be the best. The developers know that version 6.3 is a make-or-break moment. They can't afford a weak Archon-level character. Yes, she's a Harbinger, not an Archon, but at this point in the story, the Harbingers are the ones driving the meta. Get your account ready, check your artifacts. If you have good HP percent pieces with crit stats that you haven't rolled yet, roll them. She scales off max HP. You want HP, you want crit, and you want energy recharge. The hype train is leaving the station. January 2nd is the day we see it all in action. Until then, keep an eye on these beta changes. If they buff her again next week, we are looking at the strongest character in the history of the game. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.